I care a lot about intellectual elasticity of founders. Firstly, in venture, you always travel a lot, and a large part of the work is done solo or in smaller teams as opposed to the whole fund getting together. So I guess we've always been somehow distributed and able to work from anywhere. And of course, spending a significant part of your day on a video conference has always been the case in venture. Where things have been challenging and continue to be for us as well as the founders is in making new connections. While being all remote and only with people when there's an actual purpose to it, it helps to drive productivity. It also changes the shape of the relationship you establish. I think it's much harder these days to build true relationships with founders, investors, and other participants in the ecosystem. And the world has definitely become much more transactional. So sometimes, it's all good, but we know that that's not how long, true lifelong relationships are usually created. As a fund, we fairly quickly got past the hurdle of having to make remote investment decisions, and the initial period of debating on how should we operate going forwards was quickly taken over by a series of all remote deals. In total, we made 4 investments since March, 2 into teams we haven't met previously in person, and 2 into teams that we met prior to CV19, but in a very limited capacity and not in a sort of a team presentation setting. COVID-19 impact and headwinds or tailwinds affecting a given business are now part of pretty much every discussion we have with startups. So it definitely became an important part of what we think about and how we work and the decisions we make. And we continuing to adjust. It's definitely some things are easier and some things are harder, I'd say. Or what I believe, or we believe as a firm, to be key qualities. So one's definitely determination. That's very important. When you're a new kid on the block selling your product for the first time, everyone is just trying to ignore you out of existence. And finding product market fit is also a long and painful process where it's easy to give up if you lack perseverance. Founders are on a journey that will take more than 10 years if successful, and it takes some serious dedication to be able to stick to it. I care a lot about intellectual elasticity of founders. The world of startups is just so unpredictable. You often need to think on your toes and adjust your proposition and positioning to get to the highest level of value. If you're too stuck in your ways, you might miss that opportunity. So I think you need to be quite flexible. We also really like founders who are hackers by nature, not in the cybersecurity type of way, but in the way they approach problems. So not the evil way, right? Successful founders are often good at breaking the rules, but knowing which rules they can break and approaching things from unique angles that can give their business an unfair advantage. Good example of that is how founders of Airbnb offered their users to publish their property on Craigslist with a single click, and therefore piggybacking on their massive customer demand and a bigger user base at that time. And then the final one, I'd say, is the ability to manage the ego. To build a big and successful business, you need to hire people who are better than you in a given field and empower them to do their best work. Often this means stepping aside and letting them do their thing. And this requires a lot of self-awareness and ability to empower and delegate, and usually comes when we are able to tame our ego, right? So those are the key ones, I'd say. Really depends on your target market and your product pricing. Each combination will require different distribution channels and enable you to play with different amounts of customer acquisition cost and strategies. What we tend to recommend to founders at the beginning of their go-to-market journey is to really narrow down on a specific niche that is the most responsive to the product proposition, even if almost uncomfortably narrow, and then to grow from there. If you're trying to approach the market at large from the get-go, it becomes really hard to measure your product market fit market penetration, and to really determine where your product works best and where it still needs to improve. So just like any other relationship, I guess a founder VC relationship needs to be based on trust and honesty to be successful. If those two ingredients are missing, nothing good will likely come out of it. The next two key components are definitely mutual respect and openness. Oftentimes founders and VCs might disagree on the business direction, and that's totally fine. What's key is maintaining the ability to argue different sides of the debate to reach the right conclusion, and then commit to the decision that's been taken, whether you like it or not. We like to challenge founders, and we enjoy founders challenging us. Building startups can be messy, and loads of fires are inevitable. It's easy to lose yourself when surrounded by adversity, but it's key to always stand together, because at the end of the day, we both on the same team, right? I think it's one of the most exciting markets out there. CE has already proven that the region can build incredible, highly scalable companies, and I believe the likes of UiPath and TransferWise are just the beginning of a very long series of successful unicorns coming out of the region. The funding landscape has grown and also became much more founder friendly, with many new VC firms, as well as the old firms doubling down, raising new funds, increasing the sizes of their funds, broadening their focus. And there have always been incredible engineers in the region. The problem was that those engineers were working as outsourcers for Western European and US companies. But a lot of those engineers are now realizing that they could have much more fulfilling careers building their own businesses. And there are investors that are keen to back them. So it's powering this whole new cycle, and there's more entrepreneurs entering the sort of entrepreneurial journey rather than working for companies abroad, which is super exciting to see. The recent success stories are also attracting attention of non-CE based VCs who are now looking at the region with significantly more focus, I'd say. And I think COVID helps in a way, because founders based in more established hubs like UK, Germany, or France used to have an advantage of being able to easily walk into VC's office to pitch their company and build a personal relationship. And with everyone being remote right now, we're all on a fairly equal footing, with location being less of an advantage.